And that's him, an embodiment of science speaking. Now, do you believe science? Who here believes science? Science is real, it's practical, it's believable, right? Religion is too, to a large extent. But in my experience, religion dealt with me while I struggled with mental imbalances. If I had spent all the times that I invested entering one church after another or seeking counsel from one man of God or one prophetess there and there, if I had spent all that energy and time taking my drugs and staying medicated, chances are I would not have embarrassed myself to the extent that I did. Please, God is real. Jesus is real. Religion is very good, practical. But please believe science. I am aware that there are people that have their family members suffering from one disorder or the other, but they have been misdiagnosed and the churches have misquoted their predicaments. That's very unfair. There was a particular man of God that told me that my mother is a subconscious marine queen. That's the exact word he used. That man had us going for years. And of course, I always had nightmares. And these nightmares would present my mom chasing me or saying something or doing something. But these are all figments of the imagination. The things you imagine will follow you to the subconscious realm and begin to play tricks on you. Then when you wake up into your reality, you begin to expect the manifestation of all that you have seen. And indeed, negativity will begin to manifest before you to show resemblances of what you're expecting because you called it forth. Some people go through manic episodes and they tie them to trees and beat them and flog them. Some they tell them to go to deliverance sessions. It's not right. The road should be to FMC or to any other hospital that has the care and services that are required for those predicaments. So if you know somebody who believes in one line of thought or the other, and based on what you have heard, it does not really sit well with you, please do well to boldly tell the person, I think you should see a doctor. And there is no shame in it. I said it before, nobody is getting out of here alive. We are all going to die. So it will be disservice to oneself to use because of what will be said or how people will feel or react towards you to shy away from getting the right help. Am I communicating? Earlier on, I mentioned that women have a lot of mental disorders going on. I say so because women are multitaskers. We take on a lot of stress. A woman can have a baby on her back and she's washing, and at intervals she's stirring the stew that she's frying, then she'll stop for a bit and spank a child and then brush off something. We're multitaskers. I feel like all that rigorosity at the end of the day has adverse effects that it presents to the woman. Then we go through trauma. The trauma of carrying, I won't call it trauma of carrying a baby, but the stress of pushing a baby or being sliced to bring out the baby, the stress of D&C, raising a baby, pain causes mental illness. So when some of us are acquiring it through hereditary, some of us are acquiring it through living a stressful life or through trauma or through poverty. Like we just mentioned, the fuel thing, this fuel thing is further triggering people downhill. And we have to talk about it without shame because all we have is each other. We have to look out for each other. I remember growing up, I was always an angry child. Looking back now, I fought a lot. I always used to talk with so much temperament, and all that were tiny signs to show that this girl was a troubled child. But of course, because I had confidence going on, it was hard to track that. Because my parents were unaware, it was hard to have that discussion. Instead, they sent me to deliverance sessions because they always felt, you don't know what you're doing. Sometimes you talk out of tune. Sometimes you imagine things and then you say it out as if it's your reality. Meanwhile, it's not. It was a lot. There are children you know in your compound, in the schools, in your neighborhood that behave absurdly. It starts from childhood for some of these people, without even bringing in drug abuse into it. Some little kids that throw tantrums in the air. There are children you see and say, "No, give me that," and "No," and they'll smash something. Wow, Those are kini traits that if you don't handle them emotionally the right way, they'll grow with all that aggression, all that violence. That's what will build an adult that cannot contain him or herself emotionally. So let's all always be on the lookout. We have flyers that point out to some factors that are, you know, instrumental to this topic. Please, if you don't have it, raise your hands so that you get it. The information that is in it is also in the the gift bags. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate the fact that you people came out. If anybody has any questions whatsoever to throw at me or the doctors, please, the mic is free for anybody that wants to take advantage. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being vulnerable with us. So at this point, the mic is open, as she said. Do you have any question for the doctors, for her? Not for me, though. I can't help you. That's why they're here. Okay, so we have one question.
Please, the drugs, will you take it like for the rest of your life, or is there any point you will stop taking the drugs?
Depending on the condition and also the presentation. Some of the medications you take them for a specific period. Could be 6 months, could be a year. Okay. Then there are still some other things that are involved. Let us say, for example, you now have a relapse, either as a result of you going back to maybe the use of hard drugs or something. You may need to take them for a longer period.
If there was a habit that caused it and you go back to it, it will now resurface. Okay, so what if it wasn't a bipolar? What if it was like a hereditary kind of, or what if it's severe?
That's what I was saying now, that it depends on the condition, it depends on the presentation. So one shoe does not fit all. Okay, so it depends. Everyone has his own. So when you come, by the time we have made the diagnosis, we have looked at what triggered and everything, and your acceptance of your medication. So all these things count. You get my point.
Okay,
So there are some very short, longer
Okay.
periods.
Please, I want to ask, doctor, are there normal people in the whole world? Are there people who are all right, like 100% all right?
Well, there are people who are all right. Okay, now, for example, I said before I spoke, I was nervous. Okay, so I was anxious. That doesn't mean I'm not all right. So there are situations that may trigger certain reactions, certain emotions. That doesn't mean you're sick.
And for those of you who think when they are talking about mental illness, now madness that they talk about, see, before person enter street, now untreated mental illness now lead to madness. The little time I will say, let me sleep. Is either my head is in my village, or I'm thinking of the next bride that will call me, or driver that wants to do one thing. I can't sleep. I'm sleeping, but I'm not sleeping. I don't know if anybody is experiencing it.
I can relate. I can relate.
It's you people are not explaining this thing well. Make I explain and make them hear, because this thing, many of us they face them, but they never explain now. Una they use medical term so that make una no reason why una go see doctor. You cannot live here and not solve that your problem. That is what ChaCha came to do. She came to help us, because the way they talk about malaria, talk about that is the same thing as mental illness. See, mental illness is like malaria. The way malaria they sick you. Now, so this mental, and that's what I have come to understand about. In short, maybe every month, I'll be taking myself to the hospital. Doctor, please, I want to check my brain. You will just say any small thing, you are angry. You are jealousing your neighbor. Unnecessarily. Unnecessary arguments. Where you're supposed to shut up, you still they talk. In a query. And you will, funny enough, you will not know that you are overdoing things. You will think, this is my personality, this is who I am. At times, when ChaCha is talking, it's like you don't even have this mental thing. Because your own is comported I wonder the way with this thing do you maybe before you enter streets. I don't think the thing maybe your own really high before you enter because the level of comportment when they ChaCha. If ChaCha feel sick mental illness, my brother, many of us they sick am. Because the truth is that I know her. ChaCha doesn't talk anyhow. ChaCha does not behave anyhow. Let's remove Nollywood aside. Because this Nollywood thing, they deceive a lot of people. What they are acting is what is on script. They go use but if you know ChaCha, comportment na her second name. So for her to enter streets, my sister, we need to see doctor. The thing is, when you see yourself, you are not sleeping well. Imagine for 34 years of your life, your brain, they do. Then at night, when you are supposed to sleep, the head will still not sleep. I think, doctor, once in a month, everybody need to swallow that drug and relax their brain. Everybody is shouting government, government. The truth is that everybody in Nigeria, our brain, they hot. If everybody brain feel calm down, Nigeria go where?
If you have never been in that shoe, you will not understand what she's saying. It's just like a movie or a story. But me that you have happened to, exactly what is happening to her is exactly what happened to me. I was not informed. I did not know anything about mental illness or of that such. So when it happened to me, I realized that something is wrong, but I don't know. I resorted to prayer. I resorted to many things. But before you know it, it went out of hand. I was taken to the hospital. So after everything, later on, I kind of being on drugs. Later on, people started telling me, are you going to be on drugs for the rest of your life? Can't you approach churches and all this thing? You will be delivered. So I started listening to people's advice. I was in a program in Deeper Life headquarters in Lagos, one certain time, youth program. I had a crisis again. I was taken home. I rushed again to the psychiatry hospital in Lagos. So all those things, when you were saying something about religion is good, science is good. Striking the balance is what we need. You don't have to believe in one and disbelieve in the other one. Mental illness is something that when you are having it, you need to be taken care of. We're supposed to pray. We pray and take your drugs. That is it. I've been on drugs since then, and many people do not know. So I thank you for coming out, because it's not easy to come out. Many people shy away from things that is real. This is a reality we are facing, and I've been a victim, and I know how you felt. So thank you for the expository session.
Okay, my name is Vivian. I'm sorry I was a little bit late because of the parking space over there. We actually stood more than 1 hour outside before we got in. Okay, my question is like this. How do you actually know when someone is mentally imbalanced? I just want to know probably what will be happening to you, how it starts and all that. But this question is both for the doctors, ChaCha, anyone can answer. Let me know when actually the symptoms you have when you are actually mentally imbalanced. Thank you.
Now, there are different symptoms for different conditions, but the common ones, like depression. Somebody who has depression is always moody. Like I mentioned earlier, something happens, we become sad. We lose somebody, we are sad. But somebody who is depressed is always sad. The person loses interest in activities that gave him pleasure. The person sleeps a lot or doesn't sleep at all. The person is eating more than normal, or eating less. So the person is either gaining a lot of weight or losing a lot of weight. Some other people start having suicidal thoughts. Some of them actually make plans to kill themselves. They might start buying sniper or writing notes or buying rope. So these are some signs of depression. I also mentioned anxiety. The person who is unduly anxious may have anxiety disorder. That kind of person is always
Doctor just spoke